Welcome, everyone, to the Sports Writers. Here they are, Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, all from the Salem News. Nick Kukuru is off on vacation this week, so we will not have him with us as one of our sports writers this week. But gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining us, and it's good to see everybody back this week as we enter the month of December. So,
Hey, Bill. How are you?
good. Hey, let's before we get looking back at the Super Bowls and so on, Phil, tell us what's coming up on the paper and the rest of you guys as well. What's happening in the next several days? We're recording on Monday night. So what's
Yeah,
happening Wednesday, Thursday, Friday coming up this week in the Salem News?
yeah, sure. So we're right in the middle of running all of our fall sports all-star teams by sport. Um, we've run, I guess, half of them already, and we're running the next half over the next few days. So Monday in today's newspaper, there was field hockey. We previously run the golf and both the girls and the boys cross country. So upcoming this week, we will have the girls and boys soccer on back-to-back days. We will have the volleyball all-star team on Friday. A week from today, next Monday, we'll have a big um, football all-star team. It's big in the sense that it's the biggest of the all-star teams we do. It has not just a player of the year, but we have a defensive player of the year, an offensive player of the year, and a special teams player of the year. And it is a bigger all-star team than than all the other all-star teams that we do. So that's kind of
Uh, I'm sorry. There's no special teams player of the year. That's not a thing.
I'm sorry, lineman of the year. Good catch. Good catch. Special teams, yeah. Lineman of the year. Thank you. And then we
Got some good kickers out there though, so we could, but
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we wrap up on the final day with the fall coaches of the year for the various sports. So that takes up, as you might imagine, a lot of time and space. It's a lot of work to not only pick the teams, but then notify the All Stars, get information from them, get photos, chase down people who are missing, get honorable mention selections for each school, fill in the blanks, write those up, make sure all the photos match up, work with our design people on putting together a special package befitting these all stars, and then getting it into the paper at a time that we've set ahead of time. So it's a lot of work, but the end, it always looks great. Our pagination people do a fantastic job putting the all-star teams together, and we get to, all the all-stars shine, obviously, but player of the year gets their own little space on the sports front in color, which is nice. Aside from all stars, we're kind of in the middle of chasing down some stories that we didn't necessarily get to during the fall tournament season, while at the same time casting an eye towards the winter and getting in touch with the coaches for our various hockey and basketball teams. The three of us and Gene DePlacido are all busy with our specific beats for the winter, talking to coaches, finding out about cut downs, who are the captains, when he is starting, and we'll start previewing those teams next week by sport with Nick's boys basketball stuff next Tuesday. But there are some good stories, non-high school related in the paper this week that you can look for as well, that we have on a variety of different topics. So I can let these guys talk about it a little bit if you want.
Matt, Nick, maybe
Whatever
not.
you want to pick up.
Well, I'm on the. Did you want to talk, Phil, about the coming up in the paper, or going back to the Super Bowls, or?
Yeah, no, I mean these guys, but like Willie has a story going for Tuesday, and it'll be in the print edition on Wednesday. He checked in with Jake Connolly from Salem.
Yeah.
Willie, you can talk about that. Anything else you have coming up?
Yeah, Jake had a nice season for Ithaca. They made the NCAA Division 3 round of 8 there. So top 10 team in the country, and Jake's getting some run out there as a sophomore, on the defense. So nice to see that guy that played at Bishop Fenwick, of course, everyone remembers, was the player of the year for the Salem News in the fall 2 season. So just nice to check in with guys like that, see guys doing well in the NC2A playoffs, no matter what division it is.
Nick, and you've got the full court press coming up. Is that the column? What's the name of that
Oh
column again?
yeah,
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 full
yeah.
court
Full court
press.
press. Nice memory there. Yeah, going to be releasing that, like Phil said, the next week. We'll start our first column and we'll jump right into it. Football ended this past weekend, and now we're gearing up right into going right into the winter season. So looking forward to a fun basketball season here on the North Shore. I'll be doing the boys hoop again, so I'll have coverage for that regularly. And I imagine Gene DePlacido will do most of the girls hoop for us. Willie's going to be doing most of the girls hockey. Phil will be doing most of the boys hockey, and we'll kind of chip in with the other sports going on, track and whatnot, throughout the season.
All right, sounds.
And we had
Oh,
a
I'm
really
sorry.
good. I was going to say we had a really
And
good
wrestling.
winter
Yeah.
a year ago. Some championship teams, some great performances. I mean, St. John's Prep wrestling is coming off of not only an unbeaten state championship season, but a New England championship season. What they did had never been done before, and they're as great a program as there is in the state, right here in our backyard. So that's kind of neat. We're interested to see can Beverly boys basketball put together another great run? Can Peabody girls hockey take the next step that they want to take in the state playoffs? Can St. John's Prep hockey repeat as state champions? How will our track teams fare this winter? What's going on in the ski slopes? I noticed we have a new team taking part. Hamilton Wenham has joined the ranks of, you have St. John's, you have Masconomet, you have Manchester Essex, but Hamilton Wenham has joined the fray there. What can the teams do over at Pingree that are looking to take a step on the hard court and on the ice? A lot of great questions upcoming in the winter sports season, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now as far as chipping away at that. So eager to see what the next 3+ months will bring.
I like that tip of the iceberg talking about winter sports, Phil. That comes right together, huh?
If you work at a place for 33 years, you can figure out a couple of things here and there.
Nick, do you ski? I mean, if a ski story comes up, okay, I thought maybe you might be the guy. Okay.
No, I played basketball growing up and in high school, and our coaches never wanted us. They said, if
That's
you're
right.
a skier or a snowboarder, don't come out for the team. So I chose the basketball and never really got out there. But still young, you never know.
You got it. Exactly. All right, let's go back to the Super Bowls. The big story, I think, out of last weekend. It's obviously a bunch of them. If you're in the Super Bowl, it's a big story. I get that. But St. John's Preps win, the 13-0 shutout win over Springfield Central. And then I was there, of course, Nick Giannino, you were there. Listening to Brian St. Pierre, their head coach, after the game, he was saying that, he had heard all this buzz about Springfield Central over for a year or whatever. And so he's been following them. He's been watching the film, so to speak, and says they're very good. But I guess he felt that he could figure them out and his team could compete with them. And that's what he had been saying all week leading up to the game. That wasn't getting through to everybody else, or because everyone had Springfield Central as a heavy favorite in that game. But at the end of the day, in pouring rain and wind, it was St. John's Prep grinding it out and picking up the 13-0 win.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by the outcome, Bill. I thought going in that the Prep had a good chance.
Yeah.
I didn't expect a shutout, and I didn't expect a low-scoring game like that, which obviously, the rain and winds certainly played a factor in that. There wasn't a whole lot of passing going on. But, I thought that they were kind of overlooked. I mean, I think because of the magnitude that Springfield Central was beating teams by, so many points, especially in the playoffs here. And what they average about 52 points this season and over more than that in the playoffs.
57 in the playoffs, those 3 games. Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously a high-powered offense. And, Bill, us watching them, you could tell they were a big team. They had a lot of big guys. They had a lot of athletes. I thought both teams matched up pretty well against each other. But again, I wasn't super surprised by the outcome. I thought the Prep, felt like they could play with them, and obviously went out there and did their thing. And it realistically could have been a blowout. I mean, how many times did St. John's Prep get into the red zone in that opening half and kind of
Yeah.
whether they missed a field goal or they fumbled on the goal line, missed fourth down conversions. They just had a ton of opportunities to kind of increase that lead. And texting with Willie during the game, he's saying they're going to blow it. They're missing all these opportunities. And I said, I don't know. They're looking all right. They're holding their own on defense, and that was the key, obviously, getting the shutout, and they had enough points to pull it out. So, and just to piggyback off that too, with the three quarterbacks, they had to go with three quarterbacks in this game. With Deacon Robillard going out with an injury, I think he might have dislocated a finger or something. Is that what I heard? I know he was holding his hand and they were trying to tape it up, but so he wasn't able to go. And then Aiden Driscoll came in. He did get a touchdown. He also threw a pick, and they decided to go with Michael Monks. And is that his name, Michael Monks?
There's another Monks
Michael
Martin.
Monks.
Carl Michael Monks. Yep.
Yeah, Carl Michael Monks. Okay.
And he did his job.
Yeah.
Again, they didn't pass much, but Carson Brown was a workhorse back. What do you have? 38 carries, 130 something yards. Talking to Coach Brian St. Pierre at the end of the game, he said if he's not the player of the game, I don't know who is.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of great athletes out there, making plays. So that says something about Brown there. And John Aguero and Jesse O'Fury both spoke very highly of Carson and said he better be getting some more college looks because he's a terrific runner and he runs hard, and yeah, he could be a good get for a college program. But I thought it was a great performance, fun way to end the season, and St. John's Prep 3 out of 4.
I thought the Prep had been playing so well of late, and like it was a team of two halves, so to speak, of the season for them. And the second half was a much better season, and the second half of the second half was even much better than midway point of the season. So they just got it together at the end of the season, got some players back, and I just wanted to get one more note here. It was we were up there in that area, and no, I guess I'm wrong. Never mind. So I was thinking of something else. But so Phil and Matt, I think you were going to chime in there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that I did not. I was at the state semifinal where they beat Central Catholic. Pretty dominant second half performance, but they had some guys dinged up in that game, namely Stefan Patrick and Jesse O'Fury. I did not think they would be coming back 5 days later to play against Zavarian on Thanksgiving. I thought Brown would get a rest. I didn't think that they would go all out on the holiday, choosing instead to focus on getting healthy for the Super Bowl. I was wrong. Everybody played, and the Prep won that game. They beat Zavarian. When that happened, I thought, you know what? I think they can beat this Springfield Central team. And then when I talked with both Brian St. Pierre and Chris Tolios leading up to the game, Chris being the defensive coordinator, I got more of a sense that without either of them tipping their hand, that they were ready for this, what challenges this Springfield team was going to give them offensively. I also got the sense in talking to Brian, and it really hit home after the game. Now, I wasn't at the Super Bowl game, but I did see the quotes, and I saw some video out there of him being interviewed. And the way that he talked about Springfield, and we heard everything that everybody said about us, and it reminded me of what he said to us on the field in 2019 at that same stadium after the Prep defended its Super Bowl championship against CM. And that was the year, you might remember, that everybody thought CM was going to win it. And it was John DiBiaso's second year. And you wait, they're going to get rolling, and then no one's going to stop them. And, it was like a fait accompli. They were going to defeat the Prep. Well, the Prep smacked them in the mouth and won their second straight Super Bowl. And Brian wasn't so much, I told you so, but it was, I think he felt very, very satisfied that when no one else believed in his team, he and his players believed in them. I think it was a lot of the same thing this past week. Now, a few of us did take St. John's, me and Nick, and I think Gene did. But I think statewide across the gamut, most people were figuring that Springfield was going to, do what they had to do and take care of the Prep. A nice run for the Eagles, but it ends here kind of thing. Well, that didn't happen. And Nick, I think, is right in that it could have been a blowout, but not the blowout anybody would have predicted.
I have to disagree with that entirely.
Well, let me finish, and then you can go on your little diatribe. I think that could have been a blowout because they did have a lot of chances in that first half. They got the ball in great field position time after time, and subsequently, Springfield had very poor field position. Prep defense really got after it, but they never really allowed them to get going a little bit. It's also important here to note, I think, the weather played a huge role in this. I mean, let's not be mistaken that on a clear, dry day, we're not getting, maybe not a different outcome, but certainly a different game, I think. But it was what it was. It was that way for both teams. And St. John's got the momentum early, even though they weren't able to cash in early on. I think their defense set the tone. By the time they got that touchdown from Aguero, they took the full momentum, and Springfield never got it back.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what Willie has to say because, from my point of view, I thought they were clearly the better team the whole game.
But Phil, you bring up go. I'm sorry, Willie, but when you mentioned that's a great point. Is that, and I know I haven't really heard people talk about it, but we would have had a different game if the weather hadn't been as awful as that game was the point where the weather was the worst. And in fact, I was going to mention this too. That crowd for the Division I game was the worst crowd of all of the Super Bowls. I can't speak for the 5:30 or the 4 o'clock game on Friday. I mean, I wasn't thinking of it. I was there, but I wasn't watching the crowd, to be honest with you, or the night game, whatever division it was around the North Reading game. But that was the smallest crowd. But the weather obviously played a role in that. Matt, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, I just think that the game, I mean, Phil kind of answered his own question. The game could not have been a blowout because of the Prep's missed opportunities and the field position. So in other words, the reason the Prep continued to get good field position was because they didn't cash in on it. And if you watch Springfield Central's punts, that shows you how terrible the wind was and how impossible it was to pass, right? So in other words, I think Springfield actually would have been better off had the Prep made the early field goal or scored an early touchdown and not fumbled, right? And then the Prep has to kick off. Springfield returns it to the 20 or the 30, maybe gets a first down, flips the field position. So the reason I kind of disagree that it could have been a blowout was that had the Prep scored, right, then their subsequent drives would not have started at the 40, the 50. They wouldn't have then had all those opportunities to pile up 4 or 5 touchdowns. So I actually think that the Prep not scoring because of the wind and the way the wind affected those punts actually hurt Springfield. In a strange way, they almost would have been better off if the Prep had scored earlier, I think.
Yeah, I think there's some validation to that.
I think that's a fair point. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also think
I also take issue with this whole Rodney Harrison thing that they have over there. I mean, they've been ranked consistently in the top 5 in the state all year. To suggest that no one believed in them, I mean, that's a little much. This is not a plucky, bad news Bears kind of team. This is St. John's Prep,
No, I get that. But you know what I equate it to, Willie, is I mentioned this to somebody this weekend. I look at it similar to, we're going back almost 8 years now, when St. John's Prep won their first Super 8 title in 2015 hockey. They went up against Springfield at the time. It was Springfield Cathedral, which is now Pope Francis. But they had, 6 Division I players on their team, and they were undefeated. No one was going to touch them. And, the Prep was good. They weren't as good as this football team, I don't think. But, they were okay. But I don't think anybody expected them to beat them. So if you're St. John's Prep and you get one of the rare instances where you can be, a legitimate underdog, as the hockey team was in that instance, or the football team was this year, I mean, milk it for all it's worth. It doesn't happen very often. And I think it was, I think they were pretty clear underdogs. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't, Manchester Essex going there and beating Springfield Central. But still, I think there was a pretty big divide in most people's eyes between, at the top of the mountain, you have Catholic Memorial and Springfield Central. And then below that, there's maybe 3 or 4 other teams that maybe could be in that second tier, but not close to the first.
No, they should be. I mean, listen, it doesn't have to be true for them to motivate themselves with it, right? That's for us to discuss, and their coaches should be commended for, it wasn't true when Rodney Harrison did it either, right? That's why they call it the Rodney Harrison, but so, I mean, the coaches can do it all they want, and that's wonderful. And if the kids believe it and they do over there, and that's one of the things that makes Brian St. Pierre, one of the best coaches in New England, right? But, you still have to kind of look at it and say, like, well, when you have a kid in Jesse O'Fury that I thought was the best player in the whole playoffs that's going to go play in the Big 12, and you have a 5-star come from Florida to come back and join your team, like, the bad news bears, you are not.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the Rodney Harrison reference? That's right over my head.
I mean, just when he would always, when the Patriots in 2004 were the defending Super Bowl champions, and he would always say, "Nobody picked us, nobody believed in us." It's like, dude, you're 14-2, and you are about to win your 3rd Super Bowl in 4 years. Like, everybody believes in you.
Yeah, yeah. You're right, though. It's a lot of within themselves. If they believe, if that's what they believe, then it helps motivate them. Then fine, it works.
Right. Oh, for sure. No, and that's the trick. That's the magic trick for a coach is to get the kids to believe that stuff, and
Yeah.
That's to be commended. But from a media standpoint, when we do shows like this, sometimes you have to be like, well, you are still. This was sort of like one of the ways I put it was like this was sort of like in the 90s, so sort of like the Cowboys upsetting the 49ers. It wasn't the Jets upsetting the 49ers, put it that way.
I think, though, it's probably fair to say that in mid-October, when they were 4-2, none of us were rushing to proclaim that they were going to win the Super Bowl.
Right.
So I think maybe part of that underdog mentality came from, okay, everybody's got us down and out now that we lost to CM and we're no good, and we're still having issues at quarterback and we're not healthy, and where are we going from here? So maybe they kind of rallied around that. And I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I have no idea. But maybe that's the source of that underdog role. I mean, I think as one of you two guys said, hey, whatever works for you, whatever serves as that battle cry, so to speak, to get going. In fact, I think I saw the game after CM when they played BC High, and they didn't even particularly play well there. They won big because they pulled away late, but it wasn't what you would think should have been a blowout win. But somewhere along the way, they found what they were looking for, I guess, really in the playoffs. So maybe even the game before it, starting with St. John's and Shrewsbury, that last regular season game. But they certainly played at the top of their abilities in the postseason. And for that, you got to tip your hat to them.
Maybe Coach St. Pierre created this whole underdog, a mastermind, creating his team as the underdog from start to finish by having all these injuries, by changing quarterbacks midseason, by having 3 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl game, just driving the point home that we're the underdogs here. And then he got these other guys like Jesse O'Fury to overperform, and Carson Brown and so on. It's possible.
It is, when you think about it in reality, it is funny to say a team with, as Willie said, the guy going to the Big 12, another guy going to the SEC, a running back who's a stud.
The coach went to the real Super Bowl, by the way, with the Lombardi trophy, so.
I mean,
they got some advantage. They have some resources over there.
How many teams have a guy like, the player that Willie focused on after the semifinal win was Santi Quincero. And he had a great fake punt that put the Prep deep into central scoring territory. And that's when they scored the go-ahead touchdown, right, Willie, on that sequence, if I remember right?
I believe that's right, yeah.
And he's like the number 4 receiver at St. John's. Virtually anywhere else, maybe with the exception of Peabody, he would have been the number 1 guy. So, I mean, yes, they have oodles of, talent at certain positions, but you still got to get it to all come together. You got to rally the troops around, and in one of the rare instances they're an underdog, they find a way to win. Happy for those guys. That's great.
I mean, overall, throw the weather out. I was talking to Danny Ventura at the Herald about this. Take the weather out of it and just whatever. It's got to be their best win as a program, as a school, since probably the '97 Holy War against Xaverian.
Yeah,
because even that Super Bowl was sort of a fait accompli. And I mean, I think that, you know,
that Super Bowl was literally over from the first series on.
So, I mean, that's pretty, you know, you got the history. You think about all the big games that the Prep has played over the years against all these different teams, you know, your Everetts, your Central Catholics, your Brocktons.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be right up there. I mean, as far as the top 3 to 5 wins in Prep football history, I think you got this one. You got the 97 game against Zavarian. You got the 91 game when they beat Brockton in the regular season when Kevin Dwan went crazy, I think is on the list. And probably
even
Lonnie Hill game.
There was another Zavarian game there in that turn of the century. Was it 2001?
Yeah, probably the Lonnie Hill game would be
yeah.
fun, and maybe you round out the five with you know something Freddie Glatz did back in the day. We'll have to ask Jean what she thinks.
you know, I saw I think Brian St. Pierre said this was their biggest win. And then I talked to Jim O'Leary after the game, and he too was I don't want to put words in his mouth, so this I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but I think he was ready to go and say this was their biggest win as a at St. John's, winning this game.
Just while we're talking Super Bowls, congratulations to North Reading. I didn't think they had a chance last year against Swampscott, and they really showed a lot of gumption. I thought played a really good defensive game. Fought really, really well. This year, they just seemed like an offensive juggernaut that was going to find a way to get it done.
Who's their back there? Is it Batten?
Will Batten.
Yeah. Will Batten, yes. Yeah.
And he was, just to go back to your point you made about Santi being the fourth guy there. Wasn't Batten on the Prep roster last year? Didn't he transfer back? And he couldn't get minutes on the Prep team, and you saw what he did with North Reading. I mean, that kid was a beast. I want to say
it was 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it was 2 years.
But he was at the Prep at one time. That is true.
And Phil, just
the CM run. So the Prep's got former players winning Division 1, Division 2, and Division 5. Anybody else? They're like the old Bruins with their talent scattered around the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And a note on the North Reading team. You mentioned Will Batten. He was out earlier this season with an injury. Then you have Craig Rubino, one of their top 3 players. He did not play in the Super Bowl due to an injury on Saturday. But you have
on Friday.
Carucci. What's that? On Friday. On Friday. Yeah, they played the game on Friday. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We were our old buddy. God, it's been a long time now, but I still consider him a friend. Al Costabile. Had his Shawsheen team undefeated going into that game, but North Reading did what it had to do after taking care of Bishop Fenwick in the semifinals, and good for the Hornets to pick up that Super Bowl win. Same thing for St. Mary's, great for those guys. I did not see them beating Stoneham, so hats off to Sean Driscoll, awesome guy, really one of my favorite guys out there. Good guy. And, I watched a little bit of that game after St. John's, and Stoneham, I think, had a long drive to start that game, maybe 9 minutes, went right down the field, scored. I said, oh, man, they're going to just lull these guys in the submission. But to St. Mary's credit, they came right back, scored, and then never gave up another touchdown. So what did you say, Willie? Jeff Newhall, the athletic director, treated out 17 straight years now with a state championship on Tremont Street.
I think it's 16, but I'm sure by next year it'll be 17 anyway. So we might as well just pencil it in.
They're doing something right over there. So congratulations to the Spartans as well. And I can't say that I know a lot about Kip Academy, but I do know that as a 6-year program, making the Super Bowl says quite a lot about what they've done and where they're going. So although they didn't come out victorious in that Division 8 title game, I think they should certainly hang their heads high. And better things are ahead in the future for that program.
Phil, I'm glad you mentioned them, and I was going to do kind of what you just did there. But Jim Rabbit, the KIP coach, I've done a few features with him and a few of the players. They could not have been more upbeat and positive after their loss on Saturday than they were. I was very impressed. I mean, that shows me that's to me, I was very impressed with them, and that was a team that. Hull, their opponent in the D8 Super Bowl, their first 4 possessions upfield and into the end zone for 4 straight touchdowns. And Kip was down 27-0. Then it was 27-6 at the half, but they didn't allow any points. No one got any points in the second half. So their defense did not look like it was up to the task in the first half, but they stepped up, and whatever they did in the second half, they shut down Weston, and the weather wasn't bad. Hull rather, and the weather wasn't bad in their game. So, anyways, and I think if that second half showed them that they belonged there, and it was they were glad to be there. But
now you talk about things coming full circle. One of the very first Super Bowls I ever covered at the newspaper was Hull against Ipswich in 1992. I'm not even sure you were born yet, Nick, were you?
92, my birth year.
It was, okay. So, yes, 30 years ago, I saw Hull come to Ipswich, the old Doyon Field behind the high school, when they actually played Super Bowls at a team's home site. And at the time, that was the highest scoring Super Bowl in history. It was 40-33, I want to say. Ipswich won that game. And seeing on TV the Hull uniform, I remembered those helmets and the yellow and the blue colors and the way that the Pirates scripted on the helmet. I remember that like it was yesteryear. So that brought back a fond memory from like 30 years ago.
The other thing too, I want to just give a shout out to, and for years we never did this because the MIAA, wasn't always the best group, to be honest with you. But that was first class this past weekend, and they've done it the last few years. I got to give them a shout out that there was nothing to complain about, and I heard no complaints from anybody. And that would include the Gillette staff. The number of people that are working that day at Gillette Stadium is amazing, because there's so much staff there, and then the MIAA couldn't have been better. And so it was actually just a great time to be there, to be honest with you. And people are treated well, and I think people really enjoyed covering those events, and it was a great take this past weekend.
I had a chance to meet the new MIAA executive director a couple of weeks ago out at the volleyball state finals in Worcester. Bob Baldwin seemed like a really good guy. I think he realizes that maybe the perception of this organization was, as you put it, not exactly super well thought of by the people that they serve, whether it was the schools or the fans or the parents of student athletes and whatnot. And he's really working to get rid, I think, of some of that crusty "we're better than you are" attitude, and make it what it is. And change doesn't happen overnight, but he was nice to meet. He was honest in talking about his goals for the association. So it's good to hear you say that, Bill, because it sounds like things are on the right track as far as that goes.
I mean, a guy like I sat next to a guy like Nick Giannino, who's always grousing and complaining about something, right? And nothing out of his mouth. No, you never do. I'm kidding you.
If who I heard was there, I'm sure there was some complaining from at least some corners of it. Hey.
No, I'll be honest with you, not about that stuff. Nope. Okay. So, all right, guys, I think we really have about a minute left or so, a minute and a half tops. Phil, I'll let you gobble it up if you want anything. We didn't touch winter.
Hey, another great fall season. We certainly love the opportunity to present the stories, both in print and online, and through this video format. And I think I speak for all of us when I say we're ready for the winter. Let's make it an even better one, and hopefully we get some more great stories and games, and ends with a few more championships for our North Shore teams.
Ready for the winter. You got your ice melt. You got Phil Stacey in the rinks with Matt Williams and Nick Giannino in the gymnasiums. And again, from all of us, I think I can speak for you guys. A special thanks to all the fall coaches, no matter what the sports, for all their help and assistance. And for whether they made the Super Bowl or not, we really appreciate all that they do for the media aspects of this and kind of promoting their sports or sharing the information with their teams and players and so on. Special people, and we really do appreciate them for all that they do, and all that they do for us as well, for sure. So
they certainly, most of them understand that by working together we can make everything. We can just bring out the best product and present the best information. So it works out good that way.
So we hold hands here. Let's. Okay, no, never mind. Okay. All right, gentlemen. Good talking with you. Have a great week, and we will talk again soon.
Thanks, Bill.
Yep.